Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alaska College Fair. We're so excited to have you participating in this event. We have some fantastic schools with us here today. My name is Brianna, and I will be your facilitator. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. Please use the Q&A button on your screen to ask them questions for them to answer about the college process. This is just one of many different sessions happening tonight, so be sure to check the schedule for the hour following this. And this presentation is being recorded and will be available at strivescan.com/Alaska. I would now like to turn it over to our presenters.
I can go ahead and get us started. So hi, everyone. I'm one of the presenters tonight. My name is Laura Miyatake. I am a senior admissions counselor here at Central Washington University. We are a four-year public university located in Ellensburg, Washington, which is about an hour and a half or so away from Seattle. But I'll turn it over to one of the other panelists to introduce themselves as well.
I'm off mute, so I'll go next. My name's Sue Corner. I'm the Dean of Admission at Willamette University, which is in Salem, Oregon. We're the capital of the state, and we are a private liberal arts college supported by graduate programs in business, law, art, and theology. And I'll turn it over to Anne next to introduce herself.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Ann Johnson. I'm an associate director at North Dakota State University in Fargo, North Dakota. We are a mid-sized university. We have about 13,000 students and are just right next to Minnesota on the eastern side of the state. So we have about 100 different majors and look forward to answering any other questions that you all have.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Azra Martinez, and I'm a student recruitment coordinator senior with Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona. I am glad to join you all. So if you have any questions for us, please let us know using the Q&A feature, and we could go ahead and get started with any questions that we have.
While we're waiting for you to enter your questions into the Q&A feature, again, feel free to put in questions regarding application process or just college life or really anything that you have for us. We can go ahead and kind of start just chatting a little bit about some advice that we can give to students that are going through their college search process. So Sue, I don't know if you want to start us off. What piece of advice do you have for students that are starting this exciting journey?
Sure, I'm happy to start off. There's so many things we can talk about, but one thing that I think is so critical, and it doesn't seem complicated because you've probably heard this from others, but I just got back from a trip last week. I was helping my daughter, who's a senior in high school, maybe like some of you out there, visit colleges. And she had a list in her mind of the kind of level of interest she had in each of the 5 institutions we visited last week. And that list became a completely different list by the time our week was done, because visiting is so crucial. You can think you understand a place, you can think you know what's your favorite based on your research and even doing virtual visits. And yet when you get to campus, something different happens, and actually getting to walk on campus and meet people and just kind of understand the vibe of a place, there's nothing that can help you do that like visiting. So as you're exploring colleges, I just would really encourage you to figure out how to visit when you can. It's an investment of time and money often to visit places, but it's a crucial investment in helping you find the right fit. So that's one big piece of advice from me.
Great. Do either one of you would like to add to that as well before we answer the question in the Q&A feature?
Sure, I can chime in. Definitely agree. Certainly visit campus. That is going to be just so impactful if you're able to do so. I know that can be a little bit trickier at times, especially now. But the other piece of advice that I have is just to plan ahead. I know it can be an overwhelming process, but all of our jobs, I think I can speak with anyone who works in admission, is to help you through this process. If you end up going to our schools that we work at, great. But ultimately, we just want to help you find the right fit for you and what is going to be just the best option and help you navigate everything, because we know it can be daunting and overwhelming. So just rely on those resources. And especially if you haven't had as much access to your high school counselors as you would have normally had because of the pandemic, just don't be afraid to utilize us. Even if you end up not going to a school, it's our job to help you. So we're here to do that, and planning ahead will allow you to utilize those resources and hopefully not get overwhelmed.
Ezra, do you have anything to add, or we can kind of move on to the Q&A question?
No, I think you both covered it perfectly. If we want, we could go ahead and move on to the Q&A question.
Yeah, so it looks like someone asked, do we have any predictions on how the pandemic will impact admissions? I'm thinking in terms of missed opportunities or activities, GPA impacts from online school, etc. That's a really good question. Anyone want to tackle that first?
I can go ahead since I'm unmuted already. So thus far, our admission process hasn't been too much impacted when it comes to COVID and predictions for the pandemic in the near future. So here at NAU, we look at what we call the following 16 core classes for admissions, which are 4 years of English, 4 years of math, 3 years of lab science, 2 years of social science, 2 years of foreign language, and 1 year of a fine arts or CTE course, and we calculate a student's unweighted core GPA from those 16 core classes. We don't look at ACT or SAT test scores, and we've been that way for a couple of years now, and I don't foresee us going to those test scores. Although they're not required, we can look at those for consideration if it helps out a student. So test scores can only help. They will not hinder a student's admissions process. We also don't look at personal statements when it comes to admissions requirements here at NAU. The only prediction that I would say could kind of impact would be just missed opportunities. We have to switch our thinking, our modules, the way we organize events and activities when it comes to sports, club fairs, expos, and all of that as we are today, joining you all virtually. I just foresee a lot of more virtual activities, but still great ways to get involved and stay connected on and off our campus.
I have to agree. Similar to Central Washington University, every school is going to be different in terms of what they're looking for in the application process. For example, at Central, we actually do not require students to submit any sort of resume or activities list, and so students wouldn't even be providing those opportunities for us. But we do allow students to put in a personal statement, whether they are required to do so or if they'd like to just add it in extra. So we are seeing students who are going to be telling us a little bit about maybe why their GPA dipped and why their grade trends are looking a little bit different due to this pandemic. But again, like other institutions as well, Central has officially gone test optional for future applicants. So that has also been a very positive change, in my opinion, due to the pandemic. And so again, it's really going to be different for every single school. Do either of you have any comments on that as well?
Go ahead, Anne.
I was just going to tell you to go ahead. Thank you. Yeah, similarly, we are test optional as well. So I don't foresee that really changing for a lot of schools. So I would just encourage you to look at the schools that you're considering and see what their requirements are. We do look at GPA mostly as well. We don't require a list of activities, but students can submit a personal statement as part of their application. That's one of the things that we will evaluate. So we take that in consideration if a student has had a loss or been deeply impacted. We want to know that, so we know, maybe the reason for a significant change in a particular year. And then we have resources available when students do get to our campus to help with some of those transitions, knowing that there hasn't been as much access to social activities and maybe counseling services or disability services probably haven't been accessible in the potentially the same way as they were in the past. And we know that can be scary as you transition into the college experience. So we're preparing for that and kind of building in. And I think that's probably the biggest change, more so with how we're handling things. We're certainly not admitting fewer students. We're just figuring out kind of how to support you all once you get to us.
Yeah, I would just add, I think I think that we at Willamette are reading applications. This was true last year also. It's true with the files that we've started to read for this year. And it will be true for a few more years because COVID impacted students, in their freshman year and through their senior year. And so it's going to continue to show up in applications in terms of missed activities, missed or disrupted grades or difficulty learning. So I think we're just reading with great compassion as we're looking at applications and understanding that our expectations need to adjust in terms of the depth and breadth of things that students have been involved in. And sometimes we're seeing lots of pass-fail grades instead of letter grades, particularly for last year. That's fine. A lot of students and parents especially are really worrying about those things and thinking that it's going to make them a lesser applicant because they don't have 4 years of involvement in something, or they have a pass grade instead of a letter grade. And I think everybody needs to not worry about that because it's universal. Everyone's been impacted in some way, and you don't stand out because you couldn't play softball in your junior year. Nobody really could. So that's not something worth stressing about in the application process. For us, we use the Common application, and there is a section on the Common app that allows you to specifically describe how COVID has affected you. And so that's a great opportunity for students to be able to just share what some of the barriers have been related to the pandemic. And we really appreciate when people help us know that any context we can have helps us be that much more compassionate about how we're viewing you as an applicant.
Awesome. So again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to put them into the Q&A feature. But I'm going to pose another question for the group. What can students do to make their applications stand out? I'm not sure who wants to tackle that first.
Okay, well, I'll kick us off. I don't want to be the one who talks too much, but personally, again, we use the Common application at Willamette. It includes an essay component, and I feel like the essay is a really important part of the application. It is the place where you can most stand out, in my opinion. The Common App asks for all of the typical application things. It asks for biographical information. It asks for, current courses that you're taking. It asks for your transcript and your past grades. It asks for a list of activities, lots of little kind of lists and kind of small data points about you. And those are all really important for us to know, but all of those are very different than the essay. The essay is where it's sort of like you started talking to us. It's like your personality comes through in a way that's very different than all of those other lists and data points. So the essay is the place where you can most shine. You can shine by just displaying really good writing, your very best writing ability. So making sure that your essay is proofread and that you're not rushing at the last minute to get it done. So really good writing. And then it also is the place where you can give us real insight into who you are and let us see a piece of your personality that might not be coming through in other parts of the application. So I'm a big fan of the essay and think that's where you can really shine if you do a good job.
I can kind of speak on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. At North Dakota State University, we're a land-grant institution, which means kind of access is at the foundation of some of our admission decisions. So if you meet our admission guidelines, you are admitted. So we don't cap the number of students who are admitted to NDSU. And we look for a 2.75 cumulative unweighted GPA and then some core classes to have been taken as well. But if our first year students meet those guidelines, they're admitted. We don't have an essay or an application fee, and our application is about 15 to 20 minutes long, and we admit on self-reported data, so students don't have to send us your transcripts until you graduate. And then of course we'll confirm that information, but it allows us to turn around really quick admission decisions, and is just a different approach because we're a different type of university. So I think that's what's fun to see on panels like this, or just the different types of schools and sizes of schools. So you kind of get that full spectrum and can help know what's going to be right for you.
Definitely. I know for Central, for students that are applying to us, the one thing I always like to remind students is that there's a real person who's actually reading your application. So when you are putting in a personal statement, or you are going to put in a little side note, or even just filling things out, really do take time and effort to make sure that it's your best foot forward. Most of the time, we actually don't contact you or haven't been in contact with you beforehand, whether it's been reaching out to you in your schools or one-on-one appointments. So your application is your first impression of us. So for students applying to Central, I always encourage them, make sure you're double, triple checking all your work, making sure everything is spelled correctly. And also to reach out to your admissions counselor if you have any questions. If there is a question on the application, or you want to make sure that personal statement is top notch, use us as a resource. We're happy to help make sure this process goes by as easily as possible. Ezra, do you have anything else to add in?
I was just going to agree with Anne over here. We're looking at that minimum 2.5 with the 16 core classes. But if students do want to send in a personal statement, if they were to be denied, for example, they could definitely do that. But I really like that option, that opportunity for students, very flexible when it comes to admission requirements. And like you mentioned, use us as resources. That's why we're here today, to help you out, to make sure that you're meeting those admission requirements, whether it's submitting that personal essay, summary of activities, or resume, or whatever be the requirements for our specific institution. Reach out to us so that we could definitely help you out with those guidelines.
Very cool. Again, if you have any questions about anything regarding the college experience, please feel free to put those into the Q&A feature for us. But while we're kind of waiting for those questions to come in, I would love to kind of hear about each of your college experiences. So if you went to a 2-year, or you then jumped to a 4-year, if you went to a technical school, kind of the route that you took college-wise, and then what were some of those deciding factors that led you to go to that route? So not sure who wants to start us off.
I could go ahead. All right. So I did go to Northern Arizona University. My experience is a little bit different than the typical first-year student straight out of high school. I actually attended my local community college first, and I got all my prerequisites out of the way. It helped me save time and money, especially one of my biggest decision factors when I was choosing what institution to go to was that paying for college aspect. How was I going to pay? The resources, scholarships, financial aid. And unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards for me to go directly to a 4-year institution. So I stayed locally at the community college. And after 2 years, after doing all my prerequisites out of the way, I transferred over to Northern Arizona University to finish off my bachelor's degree. And I loved my experience. It helped me kind of starting off at that local community college. It helps me dip my feet in the toes, or whatever that saying may be, to just kind of get the flow of taking college classes, but still being at home with family and not being away from home, and then transitioning and getting that experience on hand when I was time for me to transfer over. I felt more prepared, and I had the opportunity to save money because I was living at home with my parents still when I was attending community college. So it really helped me out in my personal experience of attending a community college. So there is that route as well. At least here at NAU, we do accept transfer students as well. So if you do want to stay locally and get community college classes, or say you start off at a different institution and then want to transfer over, we have those options available to students as well on our campus.
Well, we're going way back in time here, but I attended Willamette University way back in the day. so I am an alum. I also am, talked about my other daughter who I was just on a college trip with, but I do have a daughter who's currently a Willamette student as well. So I've sort of watched her, or I watched her go through the application process to ultimately choose Willamette as well. And I think deciding factors for both myself and for Anna were the desire to be at a small institution, a place where there's lots of time and opportunity to explore before having to choose a major. When I went to college, I had no idea what I wanted to study or do when I finished college. And one of the advantages of a liberal arts college like Willamette is that you don't have to know that. Part of our job is to help you figure out what you want to do and what you want to be. So I think those were big deciding factors for both myself and my daughter. I think also again, the small size means that faculty are readily at hand for you. They are, they teach your classes. There aren't any teaching assistants. They know you. If you miss class, they're concerned about you because you know, they're interested in your learning and your participation, and they are true mentors to you. And so I think that was a deciding factor too, that idea that I would have teachers, my daughter would have teachers who would know her and care about her and pay attention to her learning and her outcomes. So those are some of the reasons I think we chose Willamette. We both chose Willamette, and others do as well.
I will share next. I have a little bit of a different experience. I was a first generation college student, which means that neither of my parents had gone to college before me, and I had no clue what I was doing, and neither did they. It's ironic that I work in higher ed now and work in admission because I never went on a college visit. I never did a virtual anything. I literally did nothing because I didn't know that those were things that you were supposed to do. So my first year, I went to a local school in my hometown, actually far away from North Dakota State in Alabama, and went there for a year and then transferred to a large university in Tennessee. And when I transferred, I wanted to just move and experience a new city, but still basically had no idea what I was doing on the college front. And I'm grateful that I had a really good advisor who helped kind of pave that way for me. So now part of my desire and passion in working with students and working in a college setting is to prevent students from being like me and being completely and utterly clueless, and, you know, making some bumps along the way. I didn't even know what financial aid was. I didn't apply for things that I should have. I was just lost as a goose. So it is my hope that you are all 1,000 steps ahead of me, and that the process will be quite a bit smoother for you as you go. And that's why we do things like this, so that you can not be overwhelmed and know what you're doing.
Oh, funny. So I actually had the complete opposite experience. So I am the youngest in my family, the last of my family to go to college. So I watched as my two older siblings went out of state and going through the entire college process, helped them move in. And so by the time I graduated high school, my parents were just like, okay, goodbye. Like, let's get this going. But as I was looking at colleges, I knew I wanted to be as far away from my parents as possible without paying out of state tuition, because my parents are definitely the type to come up every weekend and visit and say hi. I definitely needed some more independence. So I ended up attending a school up in probably the northern part of Washington State called Western Washington University. And the funny thing is that school wasn't really even on my radar. My dad, I'm sure will love to hear this one day, but it was honestly his opinion of the school and that drug me to a campus tour that led me to go there. I was dead set on not going. I'm pretty sure I was just very stubborn and like, oh, my dad likes the school, I probably won't even like it. But I visited a couple of other college campuses and I just really wasn't feeling the vibe. I wasn't feeling very comfortable on those campuses. And immediately after the campus tour, I was like, oh man, my dad was right. This place is amazing. I instantly felt like I was at home. They had programs that I was interested in. It was in a great location that offered me opportunities to do things outside the classroom and just into the greater community. And so had I not gone on that campus tour, I would have never gone to that university and achieved my bachelor's degree. So I definitely encourage students, definitely try and step foot on a college campus if you can. Sometimes it can make the biggest difference in the world. So again, if you have any other questions, go ahead and enter them into the Q&A feature. If not, we might go ahead and kind of wrap this up early. But I'd love to kind of hear from the group as well. What is one thing you wish you would have known before going into college?
I can start us off and wrap us up with potentially my last time talking to you all. I mean, obviously, I already told you I wish I had known everything because I was completely clueless. But one thing that I would encourage you all to know is just know that there are resources to help you choose a major. I visit with students every day who are really overwhelmed about what they want to do. Some know, but aren't sure exactly how to get from point A to point B. And we have tools to help you do that. At NDSU, we have professional advisors and a career and advising center and admission counselors. We have tons and tons of people on staff whose whole job it is to help you figure that out. So don't be overwhelmed if you aren't sure. I certainly did not know for sure what I wanted to do. I just knew what I didn't want to do, right? So I think that's a good place to start, is just knowing what you don't like can be equally as helpful sometimes. And just know that it's okay to not know that when you are 17 or 18 years old. There's time to figure it out, no matter where you end up.
Yeah, I would just sort of piggyback on that. I think the national statistic on changing majors is that something like 90% of college students change their major, and on average, people change their major 3 times. So this idea around searching for the right college based on what you want to study, it's kind of a funny thing. You do have to think about what you think you want to do, and yet it can't be the entire basis for the school that you choose, because the likelihood of you sticking with that area of study is pretty low. So I think for many students, I think it's a stress point to have to try to know what you want to study. And like Anne said, just let go of that stress point. You don't really have to know, and recognize that there are lots of other things to focus on in your college search, and just finding a place where you can envision yourself and where you think you would feel comfortable. That's really what it's all about. It's not about where your sibling was comfortable or where your neighbor thinks they're going to go, or where, anybody else is saying is a good school or not a good school. None of that matters. What matters is how it fits for you, because this is a personal decision and a personal investment. So, and lots of the process can be really rewarding and fun. To apply to college is an opportunity for you to sort of say, look at all the things that I've done. You get to kind of present yourself through your application, and it can be a really proud moment if you let go of the stress and let it be that way. So I'd encourage that.
Yeah, I would like to add to that as well. Not just, when it comes to picking a major, but just know your resources that you have on campus to help you to be successful once you're there at that specific institution. Take advantage of those mentoring and tutoring support services that institutions offer. First gen programs, like Anne mentioned, I was also a first gen student. I didn't even know what that was until I joined a TRIO program that served first generation students. So find somebody to make those connections to help you out. Once again, talk to us so that we could be that point of contact for you to get you connected with those resources. That's one thing I wish I would have known when I started the process of where to get started. Just that one person to help me out and get those additional resources and support services that I needed to be successful.
Basically covered everything I was going to say. So definitely, yes, students, make sure you're advocating for yourself no matter what college you are attending, 2-year, 4-year, technical. Make sure you're advocating for yourself and you have everything that you need to be successful. And then just kind of one more thing to add on is make sure you are also just putting yourself out there. A lot can happen when you actually step foot outside of your residence hall or your dorm room. So go and explore the campuses, go in and get involved in opportunities on campus, study abroad, volunteer work, and really just make the most out of your time there. But I think those are all the questions we had today. Brianna, I'm not sure if you want to wrap us up a little bit as
Yeah,
well.
for sure. Thank you all so much for your wonderful advice. I changed my major 4 times in college, so I guess I'm a statistic. But once you exit this Zoom, you'll have a link to a 5-question survey. We'd really appreciate any feedback you have. Thank you so much to our college representatives and your time and your great words of wisdom. And have a great night, everybody.